Hi everyone, I'm Grandmaster Erwin Lamy here for chessity.com. In this small video I'd like to present to you the endgame that was played between Karjakin and Vishy Anand in the 13th round of the Candidates tournament. It was actually the only game in the Candidates tournament where Anand experienced serious problems. As you can see, he is playing with a rook in this position against White's knight and bishop. And it's interesting to note that 100 years ago, exactly 100 years ago, in the international tournament of St. Petersburg, there was a famous game between Capablanca and Lasker, where they had the same material balance, apart from the fact that both sides had 3 pawns on one wing. And in that particular game, Lasker managed to keep all his pawns on dark squares, on f6, g7, h6 to be precise, and he managed to keep those pawns away from the White's minor pieces, and he managed to draw that game. Of course, in this particular case, which we have right here, there are 4 pawns on each side, and this should normally favor the stronger side, in this case Karjakin. First, it was Black's move, however, and he made a very important move. He played the move g6, g5. This is very important because after a neutral move like king e6, White would be ready to play f4, and this shows the main idea that White has for winning such a position. His aim is to create a target in Black's structure. For example, right now, both bishop and knight, they have no, as I say, targets in Black's position. And by playing f4, rook b1, f takes e, there is one, and it is on e5. And if White were now to manage to bring his knight over from e to the d3 and start attacking that e-pawn and actually taking it, it would result in a winning pawn endgame. Let's make a few moves just to clarify that. Let's say Black plays rook b5. Excuse me, it is White's move. Let's say king d2, rook b5. Of course, Black's move have to be a little bit cooperative in this way. Knight d3, rook b5. And now we're going to take on e5, because that's what we were aiming for. And after rook takes e5, knight takes e5, king takes e5, king e3. White has an easily winning pawn endgame. As you all know, maybe Robert Riss recently introduced his endgame course here on chessity.com, and examples like this, if you're not 100% sure how to win such endgames, I can surely recommend you to make some of his excellent exercises there. This is White's basic winning plan, but of course it's easier said than done. Make something like this work, and especially against someone defending as well as Anand did in this game. He played g6, g5, so he is immediately trying to stop that plan of f4, and if possible exchange a few pawns and make his own life a bit easier. Karjakin took on g5, and that, however logical that may look, I think king d2 was a better chance. And now, after an exchange, which we can expect at some point, he has 2 plans. He can either bring his rook over to f5, his knight, excuse me, to f5, so that he has everything well defended. But in this particular case, with the knight on f5, even with the knight there, it's beautiful, of course, it is well protected on f5. I don't really see how he is to make progress in this particular position. And therefore I think that more promising would be to implement the idea of slowly preparing f4. And well, let's try to make that work. Of course, again, I'm being a bit cooperative, so I'm just making some random moves here. King e3, rook a8, and f4. And after e takes f4, knight takes f4, we see the main point of my idea. Now h5 is very weak, knight is already attacking it, and after defending it with rook h8, I'm going to make those moves. Let's say rook h8, we would be ready to go knight d5, and again the same procedure as I said before. Now with the structure opened, White has managed to create a target in White's position and is now attacking it with both knight and bishop. And after, for example, rook h6, knight f6. Again, we would be reaching an endgame, a pawn endgame that is easily winning for white. So again, this is the typical way to proceed, but I have to say that after king d2, I believe that it's very difficult for white to make this f4 break in a serious way. For example, rook a3 would be much better, so that after king e3, rook b3, after f4, e takes f4, it's already not possible for white to take with the knight on f4 because the bishop on c3 is hanging. So that rook, of course, in the other line which we saw before, I was playing a bit cooperatively with black, and that was definitely not what was Anand going to do. But it does show that white's basic winning plan, which I just wanted to point out. After f takes g5, king f2. Of course, e5 is hanging, so e5 is hanging. So black protected it with rook b5, and Karjakin followed up very logically with g3, g4. He is trying to, of course, fix this both weaknesses, and as I said before, he wants to hit that weakness on g5 particularly. Again, very important moment. Anand played h4, creating himself a passed pawn. And obviously, taking would have been horrible. In general, for the defending side, it's always advisable to exchange pawns, but this is an exception to the rule, because after king f6, knight g1, that bishop would go to d2, the knight would be going to f3, and there's basically nothing from stopping white from taking on g5. Again, a very similar winning procedure as I've shown before. But after h4, knight g1, there doesn't seem to be much difference, does it? The bishop will still be going to d2, the knight is going to h3, and I think that at this point Karjakin may have been very optimistic, but Anand has seen this line and he goes like this: king e2, rook a2, knight h3, and white has his target. He is attacking it twice, so mission completed, you would say, but king g6 saves the day. Why does it save the day? Because now after knight takes g5, rook takes d2, king takes d2, king takes g5, king e3, king f6, very surprisingly, it is impossible for white to make any progress. I'm just going to make a few moves in order to illustrate it. For example, king f2, king g5, king g2, king g6. And now if white goes after the pawn with king h3, black plays king g5, and actually forcing white to go back to g2, after which black will also go back. And if white makes a little waiting move with king h2, then I'll give you 5 seconds to find your next move. Actually, you have 2 drawing moves in this position, but the most logical is king h6, in order to be able to meet king h3 again with king g5. Take care that you don't go king g5 immediately, because then white will play king h3, and now it's actually black who's in Zugzwang and who will have to give up protecting his h-pawn, and this should lose the game. So it's incredible. You have to realize that most probably, I'm assuming that already when going for this move g6, g5, Anand had seen that this pawn endgame is a draw, and that's really a really deep assessment of the position, which I found very, very impressive. Karjakin tried a bit. Of course, he had to, since it was his last chance of qualifying for a World Championship match. But as you can see, Anand never really budged, and he comfortably managed to lead the game to a draw, which gave him his rematch with Carlsen. So I'm going to close the video here. I think it's clear that this was another great piece of defense by Anand, and I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much for watching.